Hello everyone and welcome to today's session, and today we'll be discussing the NCERT Exemplar questions for the chapter Organism and Population. Okay, this is the disclaimer. So today we'll be discussing the NCERT Exemplar questions for the chapter Organism and Population. Okay, so these questions these are based on certain concepts. We will discuss these concepts by working through NCERT Exemplar questions. Okay, so today we'll be discussing NCERT Exemplar questions. So these questions have been divided into these following categories. So we have multiple choice questions, very short answer type question, short answer type question, and long answer type question. So let's begin with the multiple choice question. So first question is orticologies. Okay. So we have four options A, B, C, D. You have to choose the correct answer from these options. Okay. So option number A is relation of a population to its environment. Option number 2 is relationship of an individual to its environment. Option number C, relation of a community to its environment. Option number D, relation of a biome to its environment. What is the correct answer? Okay, so let's have a look at the answer. See, option number B is the correct answer here. Okay, option number B is relation of an individual to its environment. Okay, so let's discuss what is orticology. So orticology is all about studying how a single organism relates to its environment. Clear? So it is the relationship of an individual, clear, with its environment. Now what is synecology? One of the options is synecology. So it is a branch of ecology that studies how a community of different species interact with its shared environment, focusing on factors like the distribution, abundance, structure, and demology of these interacting populations. The next question, ecotone is. So you have four options A, B, C, D. You have to choose the correct answer from these options. Okay, so option number A, a polluted area. Option number B, the bottom of a lake. Option number C, a zone of transition between two communities. And option number D, a zone of developing community. What is the correct answer? Okay, so option number C is the correct answer here, a zone of transition between two communities. Okay, let's have a look at the explanation. Adjacent biotic communities lack fine demarcation lines because of transition zones called the ecotones, where species from both communities overlap and new unique species may emerge due to a broader range of resources. Now, this gradual transitions are influenced by overlapping environmental gradients, leading to a gradual shift in species composition rather than a sudden change. Okay. Now, the descent of two communities is represented by population of both the communities, and this transition zone between two communities is referred to as ecotone. So what does this mean? This means that the population from both the neighboring communities overlap in this transition zone. So this is the area where you will find species from both sides mixing together. Okay, and this is called as ecotone. Now, rest of the options do not define ecotone, which is basically the zone of transition. So rest of the options are incorrect. The next question, biosphere is. So options are a component in the ecosystem. Option number B, composed of the plants present in the soil. Option number C, life in the outer space. And option number D, composed of all living organisms present on Earth, which interact with the physical environment. Okay, what will be the correct answer here? So let's have a look at the answer. Option number D is the correct answer here. Let's have a look at the explanation. So biosphere is made of all living organisms on Earth, and importantly, these organisms interact with their physical environment. Okay, clear? Now, to put it in another way, the term biosphere or ecosphere is used to describe all the ecosystem on our planet combined. Now, think of each ecosystem like a forest, a pond, or even your backyard, okay, as a puzzle piece. And the biosphere is the completed puzzle showing the whole picture of life on the earth. So basically, what is biosphere? Okay, in biosphere, what does it include? Include all the ecosystem present on the earth. Okay, it is composed of all the living organisms present on the earth. You can say in this way also. Clear? So other options are incorrect. Clear? So biosphere includes everything. It includes living things as well as their environment as well. Okay, so basically biosphere include all the ecosystem present on the earth. Next question, ecological niche is. So what are the options? The surface area of the ocean. Then next is an ecologically adapted zone. Option number C, the physical position and functional role of the species within the community. And option number D, formed of all plants and animals living at the bottom of the lake. What is the correct answer? So option number C is the correct answer here. The physical position and functioning role of a species within a community. Okay. So what is ecological niche? So ecological niche is an ecologically adapted zone, that is specific place of habitat occupied by individual of a species. For example, a honeybee's niche includes living in a hive and pollinating flowers. Okay. Now, let's see what determines a species niche. So it's shaped by the things like the range of condition it can tolerate, such as temperature, food sources, and interaction with other organisms. So the niche is both where a species lives and how it functions in the community. Yeah, the rest of the options are incorrect. Next question, according to Allen's rule, the mammals from colder climate have. So what are the options? Option number A, shorter ears and longer limbs. Longer ears and shorter limbs. Option number C, longer ear and longer limbs. And option number D, shorter ears and shorter limbs. What is the correct answer? Okay, answer is option number D, shorter ears and shorter limbs. Let's have a look at the explanation. So according to Allen's rule, mammals living in cold areas tend to have shorter extremities like ears and limbs compared to those in the warmer regions. Now, shorter ears and limbs help minimize heat loss, which is crucial for survival in cold climates. Here, so shorter extremis of mammals in colder region help to minimize the heat loss and maintain homeostasis. Clear? Rest of the options are incorrect. Next question, salt concentration or salinity of the sea measured in parts per thousand is. Okay, so what are the options? 10 to 15, 30 to 70, 0 to 5 or 30 to 35. What is the correct answer? Okay, option number D is the correct answer, 30 to 35. Let's have a look at the explanation. Okay, so habitat of an organism is characterized by both abiotic and the biotic components. Okay, abiotic means non-living component, biotic means the living component. Now, abiotic component consists of temperature, water, light, and soil. Okay. Now, next to temperature or right after temperature, water is an important abiotic component influencing the life of an organism. In ocean ecosystem, organisms face unique challenges related to water, such as pH and salinity. Here, salinity means what? Salinity, it denotes how much salty the water is. Okay, so these organisms which live in high water, high soil, high salt content, they are adapted to these conditions. Okay, they are adapted to different level of salt in their environment. Now, the salt concentration of a sea measured in the parts per thousand is 30 to 35. And the other options are incorrect. Okay, so you have to note that the salinity varies in different water bodies. Okay, it's less than 5 parts per thousand in fresh water on land and 30 to 35 in the sea, and can be over 100 in very salty places like lagoons. Next question, formation of tropical forest needs mean annual temperature and mean annual precipitation as. So we have these 4 options A, B, C, D. You have to choose the correct answer. So temperature and mean annual precipitations are given to you. You have to select the correct answer. Let's have a look at the answer. Option number A is the correct answer. Now let's have a look at the explanation. Clear? Now you can see here the tropical forests need warm temperatures, usually between 18 to 25 degrees Celsius, and a lot of rain, more than 140 centimeters per year, often between 150 to 400 centimeters, and sometimes even up to 1000 centimeters. Now, the tropical forest, okay, the tropical rainforest or evergreen forest mainly occurs in equatorial or the sub-equatorial regions like Amazon, Central America, and Orinoco and Congo river basins of South America and Africa respectively. Now the other options are incorrect. Okay, there is a note here. So the note says that the average mean temperature to form a tropical and subtropical rainforest is 17 to 25 degrees Celsius, and the climate is characterized by mild winter. The next question, which of the following forest plant controls the light conditions at the ground? So what are the options? Options are lianas and climbers, shrubs, tall trees and herbs. What is the correct answer? Okay, so option number C is the correct answer here, tall trees. Let's have a look at the explanation. Okay, so why light is so important in the forest? So light is an abiotic, means a non-living factor that affects how all organisms grow and survive. Okay. Now you can see in a forest, tall trees act like giant umbrellas, controlling how much light reaches the ground. They have the highest productivity because they get the most sunlight, while the plants underneath, like shrubs and herbs, get less light. Okay, now let's talk about the lianas and the climbers. So these are woody vines that use tall trees for support, kind of like how a child might hold on to a parent to reach higher. This kind of relationship is known as commensalism, where the climber is getting benefit by getting more light, but the tree isn't harmed, means tree is not affected at all. Okay, now next one, herbs and shrubs, they make up the lower layers of the forest. Now they live closer to the ground and have adapted to survive with less light. Next question, what will happen to a well-growing herbaceous plant in the forest if it is transplanted outside the forest in a park? So our options are, it will grow normally. Option number D, it will grow well because it is planted in the same locality. Option number C, it may not survive because of change in the microclimate. And option number D, it grows very well because the plant gets more sunlight. What is the correct answer? Let's have a look at the answer. Option number C is the correct answer. It may not survive because of change in its microclimate. Now let's have a look at the explanation. Okay. Now, tall trees, they act like giant umbrellas controlling how much sunlight reaches the ground. So this means the small plants underneath get less light, both in terms of how strong it is and how long it lasts. Now, if we take that same plant and move it to the park, suddenly it's exposed to much more light without any shade from the tall plants. Now, the plant is used to dim and filtered light, but now it is getting a bright direct sunlight all day. Now, this sudden change can be a big shock for the plants, just like if you suddenly went from cool shaded room to a hot sun. Okay, into a hot sun. Because of the drastic change in this microclimate, especially the light conditions, the plant may not survive. Okay, rest of the options are incorrect. Now, next question. If a population of 50 paramecium present in a pool increases to 150 after an hour, what would be the growth rate of the population? Okay, options are 50 per hour, 200 per hour, 5 per hour and 100 per hour. What is the correct answer? Correct answer is option number D, 100 per hour. Let's have a look at the explanation. Okay, now let's first talk about the biotic potential. So, biotic potential is the natural capacity of a population to multiply or increase at its maximum rate under favorable environmental conditions. Okay, so this is like the maximum speed at which a population can grow if everything in the environment is perfect. Means there is plenty of food, there is no predators and ideal conditions. Okay, now let's connect this to the paramecium example. The population grew by 100 individuals in 1 hour, which means each paramecium is essentially doubling. Or every paramecium is producing, or each paramecium is producing 2 more paramecium. Now, this rapid increase shows us the high biotic potential of these microorganisms. So, the growth rate is 100 per hour. Next, these are the very short answer type questions. So, first question is species that can tolerate narrow range of temperature are called. Okay, let's have a look at the answer. Okay, answer. Let's talk about the xenothermal organism first. Okay, this is the answer. So, these are the species that can only survive within a small temperature range. Okay, so we know temperature is a major abiotic factor that affects how organisms live. It influences their metabolism also and many other body functions. Now, on the basis of temperature tolerance, organism can be classified as euthermal and xenothermal. Euthermal organisms can tolerate and thrive in a wide range of temperatures. Xenothermal organisms tolerate only a narrow range of temperature. Okay, so euthermal organisms, they are the organisms, clear, who are comfortable in both summer and winter. They can tolerate and thrive a wide range of temperature. Yeah, for example, goldfish, it can live in both cold and the warm water, making it euthermal. Then, on the other hand, xenothermal organism, they can only survive in narrow temperature range. Okay. Next question, very short answer type question. What are euthermal species? So, let's have a look at the answer. The euthermal species are those that can tolerate a wide range of temperatures. Okay, you can imagine animals like rat or cockroaches that can survive in both hot and cold environments. Here, next question, species that can tolerate wide range of salinity are called. So let's have a look at the answer. Okay. Now answer is euryhaline species. So eury means white and haline refers to salt. Clear? So we know water is a major abiotic component. Okay, it is a non-living factor that affects all the organism. Now, just like how we need a certain amount of water to stay healthy, aquatic organisms, they are dependent on the quality of water around them. Here now aquatic organisms face challenges like changes in pH and salinity. Urhaline species are unique because they can handle a wide range of salt concentration, unlike most species that need stable conditions. These adaptations help them survive in places where the environment change is often, like coastal areas. Moving on to the next question. The next question is, why are coral reefs not found in the regions from West Bengal to Andhra Pradesh but are found in Tamil Nadu and on the east coast of India? What is the correct answer? Okay, let's have a look at the answer. Okay, now let's focus on what coral reefs need to thrive. So coral reefs grow best in areas with high salt concentration. Okay, the right temperature and clear water with little bit of silt. Clear? In case of high siltation and water flow, coral reefs do not colonize. So if there is lot of silt in the water or strong water flow, corals can't settle and grow. Next question, if a freshwater fish is placed in an aquarium containing seawater, will the fish be able to survive? You have to explain giving reasons. So let's have a look at the answer. See, answer is no. So freshwater fish would not survive in seawater. Clear? So why is this happening? So this is because the fish body is not built to handle such a salty environment. Now fish body is adapted to live in water with very low salt content. Its organs and cells are used to a certain balance, and seawater is much saltier than what it used to be. Now the big challenge in salinity would disrupt the fish normal body functions. So this high salt concentration will disrupt the fish normal body functions, leading to its death. Next question, why do all the freshwater organisms have contractile vacuoles whereas majority of marine organisms lack them? Clear? So what? Let's have a look at the answer. Okay, so basically what are contractile vacuoles? They act like tiny pumps constantly removing excess water that enters into the cell, preventing cell from bursting. So let's have a look at the answer. See, contractile vacuoles, they act like tiny water pumps inside the cell, helping the organism control the amount of water inside. And it is a key player in the osmoregulation. Clear? And this is how the cell maintains the right balance of water and salts. Now consider what happens in the fresh water. Now the inside of the organism cell is more concentrated with salts than the surrounding water, making it hypertonic. Now water naturally moves into the cell, and if nothing is done, the cell would burst. Now the contractile vacuole collects the extra water and squeezes it out, much like wriggling out a soaked sponge to keep the cell from swelling up too much. And this keeps the internal environment constant. Okay, so by regularly pumping out the excess water, the contractile vacuole helps the organism keep its internal environment stable. In contrast, marine organisms live in salty water where the concentration of salt outside the cell is similar to or higher than inside. Okay, so this means water will not rush into their cells. Clear? And they do not require a contractile vacuole. Next question, define heliophytes and the cyophytes. And you have to name a plant from your locality that is either heliophyte or a cyophyte. Okay, let's have a look at the answer. Okay, so this is a thinking process. Now, on the basis of light tolerance or adaptation, plants may be heliophytes or cyophytes. Clear? So based on this, you have to answer this question. Now let's have a look at the explanation. See, let's have a look at what are heliophytes and cyophytes. So heliophytes, also called sun plants, are those that grow best in bright sunlight. Okay, so you can think of sunflowers or marigold. You must have seen them in gardens. They love being out in the open where the sun shines directly on them. So these plants are adapted to make the most of the strong sunlight. On the other hand, cyophytes are shade-loving plants that need low light or partial shade to grow well. Next question. Okay, why do submerged plants receive weaker illumination than exposed floating plant in a lake? So let's have a look at the answer. Okay, so submerged plants receive weaker illumination than floating plants because water absorbs and scatters light, reducing its intensity and changing its spectrum as it penetrates to greater depth. Now, the floating plants are on the surface, receiving direct sunlight, while the water column filters the light before it reaches the submerged plant. Next question. In a seashore, the benthic animals live in sandy, muddy and rocky substrata and accordingly develop the following adaptations. Okay, what are the options? Okay, A, burrowing, B is building cubes, C is hold fast and peduncle. You have to find the suitable substratum against each adaptations. Okay, so these are the adaptations. Okay, these three ABC, these are the adaptations. Okay, so let's have a look at the answer. Okay, now in a seashore, water current restrict distribution of the organism. So these water currents on the seashore play a big role in where animals can live. These straw currents can wash away animals that are not well adapted. So only those with the right features can survive in certain spots. Okay, now let's see how animals cope in areas with strong water flow. Some animals become strong swimmers, while others develop special structures to attach themselves to rocks or hide under the stones. Some organisms even dig burrows to stay safe. Now let's talk about the burrowing animals. So examples are like tube worms and nereis. These are burrowing animals. They are not just good at digging but can also swim as well. Now this combination helps them survive both in the sand and when they need to move quickly. Now finally, let's match each adaptation to its ideal substratum. So burrowing is best for sandy areas. Then building cubes, which likely means building tubes or shelter, is commonly in muddy areas. And having a holdfast or peduncle helps animals stick to rocky surfaces. So each adaptation is like a tool designed for a specific job, helping these animals thrive in their chosen environment. Next question, characterize the following plants into hydrophyte, helophyte, mesophytes and xerophyte. You have to give reasons for your answer. Okay. The first one is Salvinia, second is Opuntia, third is Rhizophora, fourth is Mangifera. What is the correct answer? Let's have a look at the explanation. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the Salvinia. So Salvinia is a hydrophyte, which means it lives in water, either partially or completely submerged. Clear? So you can think of hydrophytes like the aquatic plants you see floating in ponds or the lakes. So their adaptation helps them survive in waterlogged conditions, just like a swimmer needs special gear to move easily in the water. The next is a Apansia, which is the xerophyte. So xerophytes are plants that thrive in dry environments like deserts. Now Apansia, commonly known as prickly pear cactus, has thick succulent leaves that store water. Okay, much like a camel stores water for long journey. So this adaptation helps it survive where water is scarce. Okay, let's talk about Rhizophora. So this plant is a halophyte, meaning it grows in salty environments such as mangrove swamps along the coast. Now halophytes have special adaptations to deal with high salt levels. Yeah, so Rhizophora is a great example of how plants can adapt to extreme conditions. Finally, let's talk about the Mangifera. It is a mesophyte. Mesophytes are plants that grow in normal terrestrial environments. Mangifera is known as mango. It is a plant most of us are familiar with, and it grows well in regular garden soil. Next question, in a pond we see plants which are free floating, rooted submerged, rooted emergent, rooted with floating leaves. Right, you have to write the type of plant against each of them. Okay, so the plant name is given to you. You have to write. Okay, you have to fill in the column, the type column. Okay, you have to write the type of plant against each of them. Okay, so this question is testing your understanding of plant adaptation in the aquatic environment. So let's have a look at the answer. Now, Hydrilla, this is a submerged hydrophyte, which means it lives completely underwater and is rooted to the bottom. Next one, Typha, is what we call a rooted emergent plant. That means its roots are anchored in the soil underwater. But its stem and leaves grow up and out above the water's surface. Let's talk about Nymphia. This is a rooted. Nymphia is rooted with floating leaves. Its roots are in the soil at the bottom, but its leaves float on the water surface. This adaptation lets the plant get sunlight while staying anchored. Now moving on to the Lemna. Lemna is a free-floating hydrophyte which means it isn't attached to the bottom at all. It just floats on the surface, moving wherever the water takes it. Now duckweed is a common example. Those tiny green plants that have covered the surface of a pond like a green carpet. Okay, let's talk about the Vallisneria. So Vallisneria is a rooted submerged hydrophyte. Like Hydrilla, it grows entirely underwater and is anchored to the pond floor. Now, Vallisneria has long ribbon-like leaves that wave in the water. The next question, density of a population and a habitat per unit area is measured in different units. Write the unit of measurement against the following. So you have four options: A, bacteria; B, banyan; C, deer; and D, fish. So what will be the answer for this question? Now, the density of a population per unit area can be measured in different ways depending on the organism. First of all, let's talk about the bacteria. So for bacteria, we usually measure their density in terms of volume or number per unit volume. Now, since bacteria, they are microscopic and often live in liquids or on surfaces, it's practical to count how many are present in a specific volume, like per milliliter or cubic centimeter. Okay, so density of a bacterial population in a habitat per unit area is measured in volume or number unit. Now next, for banyan trees, we use biomass per area or region as the unit. Banyan trees are huge and spread out. So instead of just counting individual trees, scientists often measure the total biomass of all banyan trees in a given area. For deer, we measure density as number per area. Since deer are large and move around on land, it's straightforward to count how many are found in a specific area, like per square kilometer. Finally, for fish, we often use weight per area as the unit. The fish live in water and can be hard to count individually, so measuring their total weight in a certain area, like a lake or river, gives a more accurate picture of their population. Next question is the figure-based question. Okay, a figure is given to you and you have to label the 3 tiers 1, 2, 3 given in the above age pyramid, and next one is what type of population growth is represented by the above age pyramid. So let's have a look at the answer. Okay, now the 3 tiers are to be labeled as. Okay, so each tier represents a different age group in a population. Now the first tier is called the pre-reproductive phase. This includes all the young individuals who are not yet old enough to reproduce. Here, then you have the reproductive tier and then you have the post-reproductive tier. Clear? So the first tier is that of pre-reproductive, second is that of reproductive, and third is for the post-reproductive phase. Clear? We talked about the pre-reproductive phase where all the young individuals are present. In the reproductive phase, all the individuals in the reproductive phase, they have the ability to reproduce. They are reproductively mature. Their sex organs are mature. They can produce offerings. Okay, then you have the post-reproductive phase. So these are older individuals who are no longer able to reproduce. Okay. So second tier, as we have discussed, this for the reproductive phase. This group include all individuals who are of reproductive age. Here, now the given age pyramid represents the expanding type of population growth. Here you can see the lowermost tier. This is, you can say, most wide. It contains more number of individuals in the pre-reproductive phase. Okay, then in reproductive phase, and the least number of individual in the post-reproductive phase. So this population will grow because more number of individuals are in the pre and the reproductive phase. Okay, so more number of offerings will be produced. Okay, the individual in pre-reproductive phase, they will enter into the reproductive phase, then they will produce offerings. Okay, so this is a age pyramid showing you expanding population. This population is growing. That's why the age pyramid is of, you can say, triangular shape. Next question, you have to comment on the following figure 1, 2 and 3. Okay, and you have to tell what are these figures. Clear? Now let's have a look at the answer. See, first of all, let's focus on the figure 1. So this part of the diagram shows a single group of organisms. Okay, all belonging to the same species. Okay, so in figure 1, we see that all individuals are from the same species, which means they form a population. So these individuals interact with each other and with their environment as well. Okay, now this type of interaction where members of a species interact is known as intraspecific interaction. Let's talk about the figure 2. Now in figure 2, we see a community made up of 3 different populations, species A, B and C. Now each group represents a different species, just like how a neighborhood might have families from different backgrounds living together. Now these different populations share the same environment. Now the important thing here is that all these different species interact with each other and with their environment. So this is known as interspecific interaction. For example, in a garden, bees, which is one species, pollinate flowers, which is another species. And this shows how different organisms can affect each other's survival. Now, figure 3 is what we call a biome. So, a biome is like a huge neighborhood for living things, defined by its climate and the type of plants and animals that live there. So, basically, biome, okay, has its own climate and the type of plants and the animals that live there. Okay, it is the highest level of, you can say, ecosystem, which has its own climate and the plants and the animals. Examples are desert, forests, and grasslands that are all different biomes you might be familiar with. Okay, so you can see figure 3, it contains 3 communities, of which one is the climax and other 2 are the different stages of the development. Now, all 3 communities exist in the same environment and interact with each other as well as with their surroundings. So this interaction is key in ecology, just like in a city where neighborhoods influence each other. Now, these communities affect one another and the environment they share. The next question, an individual and a population has certain characteristic, name these attributes with definitions. Okay, so let's have a look at the answer. Okay. Now, first let's list the main attributes that both individuals and populations have. So these include the pattern of distribution, dispersal, biotic potential, and gene pool. Now let's focus on the phenomena of distribution. Now this refers to how individuals are spread out within the geographical area of a population. Okay, so we call this as intra-population dispersion or internal distribution patterns. For example, think about how dandelions in a field might be clumped together in some spots and spread out in others. So this pattern tells us a lot about their population. Next, let's talk about dispersal. Dispersal means that individuals move from one place to another at some point in their life, which can happen through immigration, okay, or immigration. Okay, now what is immigration? When the individuals they are entering into a population. Immigration, when the individuals they are leaving a particular population. Okay, what is immigration? Let's talk about immigration. So immigration means number of individuals of the same species that move into a new habitat from somewhere else during a certain time period. So this process can increase the size of a population in a particular area. Let's talk about the immigration. Immigration is the opposite of immigration. It's when individuals leave their current habitat and go somewhere else. Okay, clear? So immigration causes the population size in that habitat to decrease. So now you understand difference between the immigration and the immigration. Clear? Immigration is individuals that enter into a particular habitat. Immigration, individual with exit, which are exiting, which are leaving a particular habitat. Let's talk about the biotic potential. The biotic potential is like the maximum growth rate a population can achieve under perfect conditions. Perfect conditions mean there is plenty of food, space, and there is no predation or disease. So think of it as a population's natural ability to grow. Okay, finally let's discuss about the gene pool. So the gene pool is all the genetic information or all the different genes present in every individual of a breeding population. Okay, a larger gene pool usually means more variety and better chances for the population to adapt to changes. Again, there is a figure-based question here. Okay, so the following diagrams are the age pyramid of different populations. You have to comment on the status of these populations. Let's have a look at the answer. Okay, let's start with figure A. Now it is a pyramid shape age pyramid. Clear? So this means that the base is much wider than the top, just like a real pyramid. Now here you can see the base of the pyramid, which represents the pre-reproductive age group, is much larger than the reproductive and the post-reproductive groups. So this population will expand. This is a growing population. Okay. Now this kind of age structure tells us that the population is likely to increase rapidly because more number of individuals are young. They are in the pre-reproductive phase. These individuals will soon become capable of reproducing, leading to a population boom. Now let's move on to the figure B. So figure B has an inverted bell shape which looks more balanced and less pointed than the pyramid. Now in this figure you can see the pre-reproductive and reproductive stages are same. Now this type of age pyramid indicates a stable population. The number of births is roughly equal to number of individuals leaving the reproductive stage. So the population size is likely to remain steady over time. Okay, number of birth you can say is equal to number of deaths, or the number of individuals added is equal to number of individuals that are removed from the population. Clear? So the population remains stable. Now let's talk about figure C. So figure C is like a urn-shaped pyramid. Clear? So it is an urn-shaped pyramid. This is also known as inverted pyramid. So in this figure, the pre-reproductive and reproductive stages are less than the post-reproductive stages of this population. So this population will decline because more number of individuals are in the post-reproductive phase. Okay, and less number of individuals are in pre and reproductive stages. Okay, so here more number of individuals. Okay, there are more older individuals here. So older individuals, they have lost the ability to reproduce. So here the population will decline. In this population, more older people are present. So an urn-shaped age pyramid, which is also known as inverted pyramid, this is a graphical representation of a population with a declining birth rate. Why declining birth rate? Because more number of individuals are in the post-reproductive phase and there are high proportion of older people. Okay, so with this we end this session. I hope this session was quite knowledgeable for you. We'll meet you in the next session. Thank you very much for listening.